Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2, Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. A woman in green stood atop a tall building, gazing at the vast and endless Chu capital. Is it worth it to come to Chu capital, just for cultivation? The woman in green silently pondered. In her small town on the fringe, there were only a few dozen eternal true gods, and with her strength, she was one of the most powerful in the town, naturally leading a comfortable life. In the small fringe town, I could never acquire powerful heritages, and breaking into the primal chaos realm seemed hopeless. But since coming to Chu capital, I quickly found a heritage that suited me. I even obtained quite a few resources, and now my strength could be described as at the limit of an eternal true god, thought the woman in green. With a heritage and resources, she had improved her strength, mastered several primal chaos realm moves, and now saw a glimmer of hope in advancing into the primal chaos realm. I've gained opportunities, but troubles have followed, the woman in green worried. If it weren't for the help of my good friend Marquis Chula, I would likely be living a life worse than death right now. But Marquis Chula, being a third-rate member of the imperial clan, holds no real power. The woman in green had been in Chu capital for quite some time, where she established Shallow Whisper Pavilion, drawing many guests through music and illusion technique, even attracting many noble patrons. Chu capital had many powers, and she had traded some sacrifices for cultivation heritage and some resources. I've been very careful in Chu capital, cautious at every step, even afraid to control the minds of any noble guests. Still, trouble came, she felt distressed. In Chu capital, where powers are deeply entangled, even a first-rate marquis of the imperial clan fights fiercely against others. She, a mere eternal true god, despite being careful, was still dragged into a dark vortex. Suddenly, the woman in green noticed two figures approaching. A man in black, accompanied by a naive-looking servant. Great Saint Luo he. The woman in green recognized him at a glance, her heart skipping a beat, feeling as if the sky itself had brightened considerably. She immediately went forward to greet them. The main building of the Shallow Whisper Pavilion. Just a few of your best songs, Luo Feng said as he sat down, while Morosa munched on food and drink beside him, accustomed to his master enjoying some music. But music didn't really interest the sector beast. Luo Feng was quite interested, although there were many performers at the previous discourse banquet. That was not a suitable occasion for deploying the 7 emotions of heart refining technique. Before coming, Luo Feng had gathered some information. Among the best at the banquet in terms of music and illusion techniques were 3 experts, and this woman in green, named Yu Yui, came from a small town on the fringe of flame-wind ancient country, and was currently embroiled in a big trouble involving a general from Chu capital named Shui Kai. Places like Chu capital, you can't just avoid trouble if you want to, Luo Feng thought. When he first arrived in Chu capital, he stayed in seclusion and didn't provoke anyone. Yet Marquis Chu Yuan, Marquis Chu Ji, and their 3 guest elders still banded together against him. Only by achieving transcendence of primal chaos realm, could he truly rise above it all. Of the 3 music experts at the banquet, Luo Feng chose her, also intending to help her this one time. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh tilde tilde tilde. The woman in green stood there, surrounded by flowing water, using numerous streams as musical instruments, the sound emerging as if it were the natural sound of heaven and earth. This music, even aligning with the cosmic laws, further stirred Luo Feng's emotions. Luo Feng had already deployed the 7 emotions of heart refining technique, immersing himself even deeper in his feelings. Moved by the emotions, he found himself weeping unexpectedly. The woman in green was surprised. How could listening to music bring someone to tears? She dared not stop, focusing only on performing the music and illusion technique. Throughout the musical illusions, Luo Feng didn't say stop, so she didn't dare to. This great Saint Luo he seems easily moved by music. But at the discourse banquet, he didn't care at all. The woman in green, confident in her music and illusion technique, observed Luo Feng while performing. That's enough, Luo Feng suddenly spoke. The woman in green could only stop. Let's end it here for today. Luo Feng stood up and walked outside. Cultivators live too long and experience too much. Emotions easily become numb. 7 emotions of heart refining technique. While it can intensely stir emotions, over time and repeated intense stimulation of the emotions can also become numbing. So it should be used sparingly. 7 emotions of heart refining is just an adjustment. The Great Destruction heart refining technique is fundamental. Luo Feng's 7 emotions of heart refining transitioned into the Great Destruction heart refining technique. Accustomed to the painful tempering of his spiritual will, the continuous refinement also kept Luo Feng's spirit full of fighting spirit. How much is the fee? Morosa saw his master standing up, immediately waved to collect all the food and drink in front of him and his master, then turned to the woman in green. It's a great honor for Shallow Whisper Pavilion that great Saint Luo he could visit. There's no need for a fee, said the woman in green. Morosa frowned. The master doesn't like taking advantage. Speak, how much is the fee? 10 cosmic sands will suffice, the woman in green could only say. With a wave of his hand, Morosa sent out 10 cosmic sands, then swiftly followed Luo Feng as they left quickly. The woman in green immediately followed to see them off. She continued until Luo Feng and Morosa disappeared into thin air. Are you leaving just like that? The lady in green was somewhat agitated and also a bit apprehensive. Marquis Chu Yu's mansion. Brother Luo he went to the Shallow Language Pavilion. Emperor Chu Yu naturally received the news, and with Luo Feng's current strength, Emperor Chu Yu was very concerned about every move of this guest elder. On one hand, he feared other first-class marquises might entice him, and on the other hand, he also worried about not having treated him well enough, which might deteriorate their relationship. Emperor Chu Yu knew well that even if they were once friends, it didn't mean they would always be friends. The relationship of friendship needs to be maintained. This brother Luo when he was in Huyang City, liked to listen to music. Moreover, he often became so immersed in it that he would occasionally lose his composure, laughed Emperor Chu Yu, recalling that it was precisely because of Luo Feng's lapse that some eternal true gods in Huyang City considered Luo Feng to have a weak spiritual will and deemed him an average eternal true god. This also led to Luo Feng's first act in Huyang City, where he seized the true god's heart of the Vice President Lai Mo with one movement. At the Banquet of Philosophies, he listened to Yu Yui's music-driven illusion technique, and since he went there again in private, clearly he is quite fond of it. Emperor Chu Yu thought for a moment, then immediately instructed his trusted aide. Take my mansion's token and go to the Shallow Language Pavilion, advised Emperor Chu Yu. Yes, my lord, replied the trusted aide promptly. Luo Feng's mere visit to the Shallow Language Pavilion attracted the attention of many forces in Chu capital. Given their understanding of great Saint Luo known for despising evil and having few usual hobbies, other than enjoying fine food, wine and music. Yu Yui's name was also collected by many forces. Great Saint Luo likes your music-driven illusion technique, which is a great opportunity for you. This is our Marquis Chu Yu Mansion's token. Show it if you run into trouble. You can also contact me directly, said the aide of the Imperial clan's first-class Marquis, whose status was quite high outside, as he, accompanied by several guards, delivered the token to Yu Yui at the Shallow Language Pavilion. Once the token was given, those aides left. Holding the token from Marquis Chu Yu's mansion, Yu Yui felt that all troubles were gone, completely relieved. In fact, even without this token, a transcendent being from the primal chaos realm coming to listen to her music-driven illusion technique, was a message alone, powerful enough to intimidate even Shui Kai. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Luo Feng's days in Chu capital were quite peaceful. If there was a time during the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm, when many forces dared to provoke him, or had conflicts of interest with him, now that Luo Feng had transcended the primal chaos realm, everyone, including those first-class marquises, was actively seeking to make good relations with him. Among the 7 first-class marquises under Emperor Chu's lineage, 6 are quite likable. Luo Feng, judged based on intelligence and personal interactions. Only Marquis Chu Yuan is somewhat mad. During this time, only Marquis Chu Yuan consistently avoided Luo Feng and never met him face to face. Luo Feng also knew that Marquis Chu Yuan, who had the royal bloodline of Thunder Ancient Country, and was also leveraging the primordial bloodline in his cultivation, the root cause of his madness and fierceness was the path of his cultivation. Brother Luo He, Luo Feng suddenly received a message. Hurry and prepare, the old ancestor's trusted aid has come. As Luo Feng, who was meditating in the quiet room, took in this news, he was startled. The old ancestor, naturally, was one of the 13 emperors of Flame-Wind Ancient Country, Emperor Chu. The coming of an emperor's trusted aid, what could it mean? According to the previous guesses by Emperor Chu Yu, the emperor might consider taking disciples. Search the ovalfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Sigh. Luo Feng quickly exited the quiet room and calmly awaited, sensing Luo Sa's approach, as he immediately rushed to his side upon detecting Luo Feng leaving his retreat. Master, did you leave your retreat so soon? Luo Sa inquired. A distinguished guest is coming soon, instructed Luo Feng, be cautious. A distinguished guest. Realizing the implication, Luo Sa immediately stood by to wait. Shortly after, 9 figures appeared out of thin air in the high sky, one of whom was Emperor Chu Yu, while the other 8 figures were all clad in the armor of the Emperor Chu Palace's trusted aides, albeit in different styles. The leader among the 9 figures was a silhouette of black water, wearing black armor with blood-colored secret patterns. The old ancestor has 3 main trusted generals. This one here is General Xian Jiao, introduced Emperor Chu Yu. General Xian Jiao, this is guest official Luo He. General Xian Jiao was burly, with black water flowing slowly within his armor, his eyes of condensed black water deadly still, casting a glance at Luo Feng and Luo Sa, enveloping the master and servant in a suffocating aura. When observed, the world seemed to fall into dead silence, wrapping around oneself. According to intelligence, Emperor Chu has 3 major trusted generals, reputedly not cultivators, but some very mysterious existences. Luo Feng, encountering General Xian Jiao for the first time, could feel a great disparity between them. Not a cultivator, yet so powerful. Luo Feng also knew that Flame-Wind Ancient Country harbored many secrets, and even the numerous opportunities granted by the mysterious Yuan were mostly monopolized by the 2 great ancient countries. Master, this General Xian Jiao is terrifying. I feel that with one move I would be gone, Luo Sa communicated telepathically to Luo Feng. Luo Feng immediately saluted. I've seen General Xian Jiao. These ordinary trusted aides were also eternal true gods, who could reach the strength of the primal chaos realm only with some powered augmentation. Luo He, General Xian Jiao looked at Luo Feng, his tone becoming slightly warmer. The Emperor is interested in taking you as a disciple, would you be willing? If you are willing, then accompany me to the palace of Emperor Chu. If not, I will return to report. Luo Feng stood inside the cave mansion, looking up at General Xuanjiao in the sky, and without hesitation, he immediately said, It's my fortune that Emperor Chu is willing to take me as his disciple, and I am naturally willing. Luo Feng had been prepared for Emperor Chu to take him as a disciple, and he had thought it over carefully. Search *the noelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Among the 13 emperors of the imperial clan of Flame-Wind Ancient Country, Emperor Chu had terrifying strength, and the few recorded instances of his intervention were sweeps against other ancient existences. He was quite low-key and bore no infamy, mostly devoting himself to cultivation in seclusion. Becoming a disciple of Emperor Chu was something Luo Feng was willing to do. After all, he knew well that with the help of a master, he could avoid many detours. Good, follow me. General Xuanjiao then showed a smile, waved his hand, and enveloping Luo Feng with an invisible wave, flew toward the palace of Emperor Chu together. Brother Luo He, congratulations, Emperor Chu Yu congratulated him during the flight. It's also thanks to Brother Chu Yu for bringing me to Chu capital, Luo Feng also expressed his thanks. Ha ha. With Brother Luo his strength, even without me, you would rise rapidly, Emperor Chu Yu said. Soon, under the lead of General Xuanjiao, Luo Feng and the others arrived in front of the palace of Emperor Chu. All of you withdraw. I'll take Luo He to meet the emperor, General Xuanjiao said. Yes, the trusted aides withdrew, and Emperor Chu Yu stood outside the palace of Emperor Chu with a slight smile, not following any further. Immediately after, Luo Feng entered the palace, which seemed to merge into the dark and chaotic, with General Xuanjiao. A moment later, Luo Feng and General Xuanjiao entered an ancient hall together, instantly seeing a burly figure sitting on the floor of the hall, this figure sitting there as if he were the center of the boundless universe. As if the heaven and earth were to perish, yet he would not. His breathing was even more terrifying than the might of heaven and earth. Looking at Luo Feng, it gave Luo Feng a sensation akin to facing the great Tao of life origin. Luo Feng understood that this person must be one of the 13 emperors of the imperial clan, Emperor Chu. Emperor, General Xuanjiao saluted, Luo He has been brought here. Emperor Chu nodded slightly and General Xuanjiao immediately withdrew from the hall. The hall was then left with only Luo Feng and Emperor Chu. Luo He, Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng with a smile. Recently, I've taken some time to understand your past. You come from the primordial cosmos. Luo Feng was surprised and did not hide it, immediately bowing, yes, I indeed come from the primordial cosmos. Emperor Chu smiled approvingly. Creatures from the primordial cosmos are exceptionally weak. Growing from weakness to a true god is difficult. That you have reached the transcendence of primal chaos realm is indeed impressive. Don't be nervous. Countless ancestors of today's cultivators, almost all came from the primordial cosmos. They came to the land of origin, and through endless years of propagation, we now have so many creatures, Emperor Chu said. The original natives of the land of origin almost all live in the region of the eastern extremes. Luo Feng also knew this. Let me ask you another question. Are you the reincarnation of a cultivator? Emperor Chu asked again. Although the Flame-Wind Ancient Country had clever means, they still could not break through the supreme rules. No, Luo Feng shook his head. Emperor Chu nodded. Among the 13 emperors, I have the fewest disciples, only 2. Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. In accepting disciples, I value talent and compatibility of temperaments. Your talent is good, and I like your character too, which is why I decided to take you as my disciple. Emperor Chu said, before you become a disciple, think it over carefully, whether you really want to become a disciple. Becoming a disciple is a significant cause and effect. The relationship between master and disciple is comparable to that of close blood relatives. Emperor Chu said, a master chooses his disciple, and a disciple also chooses his master. Think it over carefully. Once you become my disciple, the other pinnacle beings of the land of origin will no longer be able to take you in as a disciple. Luo Feng, of course, understood that the mentor-disciple relationship was significant. Yet, how many of the pinnacle beings in the land of origin were interested in him? Moreover, Luo Feng had his temperaments. Some existences committing immense sins, Luo Feng himself did not wish to become a disciple under them. Disciple has thought it through clearly. Luo Feng immediately knelt down, touched his head to the ground, and made a grand salute. Disciple Luo Feng greets the master. Luo Feng. Emperor Chu was startled. Luo Feng is my real name, involving some karma, so I have always used the name Luo He. Since Luo Feng decided to become a disciple, he naturally no longer hid his real name. Ha ha ha, very well, very well. Emperor Chu laughed upon hearing this. From today onwards, Luo Feng, you are now my third direct disciple. Luo Feng, do the karmas you're entangled with require my help to resolve? Emperor Chu asked. Not necessary, disciple can resolve them, Luo Feng said. Emperor Chu nodded in satisfaction. Since you are entangled in karma, I will also keep your real name confidential. Seeing his disciple resolve troubles on his own was something Emperor Chu was very pleased to see. Today you've sworn apprenticeship to me, and I've prepared 3 gifts for you. Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. The first gift is the 2 inheritances you chose. 8 Tribulations Life Form First Calamity, and Extermination of 72 Blades Volume 1. Once you master them, you can get the following inheritances for free. Of course, the inheritances I can give you for free are those that do not surpass the ultimate realm of Godly King, Emperor Chu said. Luo Feng listened with surprise. Free access to these 2 inheritances up to the ultimate realm of Godly King. Currently, 8 Tribulations Life Form First Calamity, and Extermination of 72 Blades Volume 1, both tips of the first realm of Godly King, are worth around 100,000 merit points each. If one were to progress further, the inheritance of the second realm of Godly King would require around 3 million merit points. The teachings of the third realm, the ultimate realm, even more, demands 1 billion merit points. To gain these dharma, some guest elders would even fight to the death for the flame-wind ancient country. 2 inheritances, worth around 2 billion merit points in total. As long as I reach the required realm, I can get them for free. This is the difference between outsiders and direct disciples. The second gift I have for you, Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng, flipped his hand and he took out a stone box. As the box opened, it contained 10 pale red fruits. Just by smelling the fruit, Luo Feng felt his soul nourished, and his thoughts churning several times faster. These are primordial crystal spirit fruits. The ancestor once bestowed them to me, but now they are of little use to me, so I give 10 to you. These primordial crystal spirit fruits are grown from a fruit tree cultivated with primordial crystal jade. They have miraculous effects in nourishing the soul. After consumption, one's alignment with the supreme rules significantly improves, thus greatly enhancing one's comprehension, said Emperor Chu. This is not a product from within our origin world, but exceedingly rare. Merit points can't even exchange them, so make sure you use them sparingly. I suggest you consume 5 fruits at the primal chaos realm, and another 5 at the first realm of Godly King. Yes, Master, Luo Feng felt the deep care of his master. Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. What is your most commonly used weapon? Luo Feng flipped his hand and pulled out the blood shadow knife, this blade. Emperor Chu glanced at it. Is it a Godly King level blade embryo? Emperor Chu pondered briefly, then flipped his hand to take out a cluster of rainbow-colored mud, casually tossing it onto the blood shadow knife. The knife eagerly absorbed the colorful mud in the blink of an eye. Originally, your blade embryo was capped at a weapon of the first realm of Godly King, Emperor Chu said. Now, its potential has increased significantly, with the possibility of reaching the ultimate realm of Godly King. However, I've provided the main material. You will need to gather some supplementary materials yourself. Because nurturing a blade embryo is most crucially your personal endeavor. Here is the detailed method to nurture a weapon, said Emperor Chu as a beam of light fell upon Luo Feng, encoding the secret technique of weapon cultivation into him. Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. The ancestor decreed, even for a direct disciple, merit points must still be accumulated on one's own. Master has already done so much for his disciple. Luo Feng was very grateful. Each of the 3 gifts was of immense value. I am not adept at teaching disciples. Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. I am not skilled in the great Tao of life origin, so you will have to rely on yourself. As for the great Tao of destruction origin, it just happens to be my path too. If you have any confusions, you can come and ask me. Luo Feng nodded. Disciple understands. Do you have any questions now? Emperor Chu looked at Luo Feng. Not at the moment. Luo Feng shook his head. Joking to himself, his own cultivation of the great Tao of destruction origin was still very low, not even reaching the top-tier standard of the primal chaos realm. As he was still in a rapid growth phase, he decided to only inquire when truly faced with bottlenecks making progress difficult. Good, Emperor Chu nodded with a smile. As my direct disciple, there are many special missions you may choose from before they are assigned to members of the imperial clan and marquises. Understood, Luo Feng nodded. Go now, cultivate diligently, and become a godly king soon. Among my disciples, none are yet godly kings, Emperor Chu remarked with emotion. Disciple will surely strive. Luo Feng bowed right away. Disciple takes his leave. Luo Feng then promptly exited the Grand Hall. Looking at the chaotic dimness outside the Grand Hall, Luo Feng felt somewhat exhilarated. The 10 primordial crystal spirit fruits given by Master Emperor Chu, just smelling them benefited his great cultivation immensely. What wonders would actually consuming them perform? Since arriving in the land of origin, this was the first time he had encountered such a rare treasure. Eager to begin, Luo Feng started his journey back, wanting to try one of the fruits first. Inside the Grand Hall, Emperor Chu watched Luo Feng leave. My 3rd direct disciple, Emperor Chu watched and slightly shook his head. It's a pity that my ability is limited, unable to guide the disciples' cultivation properly. Like Emperor Qing among the 13 emperors, because his realm is high enough, even when teaching disciples of different paths, he could quickly pinpoint the problems of the disciples and guide them efficiently. What about him, Emperor Chu? He could only provide precious resources. For the rest, he had to rely on the disciples themselves. What does taking disciples amount to? Emperor Chu looked into the boundless universe beyond the Grand Hall. This origin world will eventually meet its end. By then, how many can survive? Even the ancestor is advancing in darkness. Emperor Qing too has embarked on this path, and he may well assist the ancestor in the future. While we 12 are indeed strong enough in the land of origin, if we leave this origin world, what are we really worth? And my disciples likely don't even have the qualifications to leave the origin world. Cherish the connections with them in this origin world. Emperor Chu gently shook his head, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. This video will end here.